Hello, I'm Jim Paxon. On today's show, we'll see how conservation partners are working together for wildlife. And we'll also take you to the ever-popular High Country Hummingbird Festival. And if you're looking for a new pet, we may have just the critter for you. All that and more right now on Arizona Wildlife Views.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sportfish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Welcome to our show. In our first story today, we'll see how state conservation agencies across the country and right here in Arizona are working to restore endangered species, repair critical habitat, and maintain our natural abundance of fish and wildlife for generations to come.
When it comes to conserving wildlife, nobody does it better than North America. The United States and Canada are world leaders in wildlife conservation. But the heavy lifting is done by their state, provincial, and territorial wildlife agencies. Their collective contribution to conservation is unparalleled, and it starts with a highly qualified workforce of biologists and other professionals who are passionate about conserving wildlife for future generations. In the United States alone, state wildlife agencies employ nearly 50,000 full and part-time employees. That includes more than 11,000 degreed biologists devoted to managing and conserving wildlife, and more than 8,000 certified law enforcement officers protecting the public's wildlife. It's numbers like those that make you start to understand the tremendous impact of state-led conservation. Oh, and don't forget volunteers. Over 190,000 volunteers work with state wildlife agencies every year. Another way those agencies contribute to conservation is by managing land and water for the benefit of wildlife and outdoor recreation. State wildlife agencies manage or control more than 465 million acres of land and 168 million acres of water. That's about 990,000 square miles of wildlife habitat. It's almost 4 times the size of Texas, more than 8 times the size of Arizona, or about 480 million football fields. Improving habitat, managing wildlife, and restoring endangered species takes a lot of money. The financial muscle of state wildlife agencies to make a difference for wildlife cannot be overstated. Their annual budgets add up to a whopping $5.6 billion. The largest part of that, 35%, comes from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. The next biggest chunk of money, just over $1 billion, comes from federal excise taxes on the sale of firearms, ammo, archery and fishing equipment, electric boat motors, and a portion of motorboat gas taxes. This is what fuels the powerful state-led conservation machine. People, habitat, and financial resources. They keep North America's wildlife conservation machine moving forward, connecting people to wildlife-related outdoor recreation opportunities and conserving fish and wildlife for future generations to enjoy. When visiting a zoo, most people know little more than what they experience. The majesty of the exotic animals and the cuteness of a few comedians stand out as you roam the grounds.
You know, it's beautiful weather and they like to see the animals, and it's a great zoo given the size of it for children this age to look around and be able to get up close and personal.
It's easy to become fixated on the animals with little thought to the backstory and the challenges wildlife agencies, and other conservation organizations face. Heritage Park Zoological Sanctuary in Prescott has developed a strong partnership with Arizona Game and Fish to help native wildlife.
Game and Fish has played an incredible role in the development of Heritage Park Zoo. The working relationship that we have with them obviously lends us to be able to take in some of the rescue animals that they find, confiscations that they find. So over the past 27 years, we've blossomed into about 209 animals that are here on grounds, part of the collection, and another 250 rescue animals that we do annually, usually between that baby time, May and October.
The zoo relies heavily on volunteers and donations to meet its needs and receives no city, state, or federal funding. Even so, Heritage Park serves the role without compensation as the department's unofficial wildlife triage center in the Tri-City area. They often take in rescued animals and even find appropriate facilities to house them if they can't be released back into the wild. Region 3 Wildlife Manager Virginia Gouldsbury explains.
These posters here are good examples of the different rescues that they've done for us since we started the partnership. This is one where I brought in 2 bear cubs in 2012 that were orphaned, and they had been without their mother for over 24 hours. So in this picture, after I brought them in, this is only one of them, but they're triaging it and making sure that the bear has fluids and everything that it needs. This was kind of an interesting year because actually within a span of a couple of months, the zoo had taken in 7 orphan bear cubs from ranging in different ages and housed all 7 here at the zoo until other facilities could be found. They ended up actually keeping one. They named it Augustus, and that one is currently on display at the zoo.
Oh, then we'll let him do it. You want to help Jerry?
Yeah, definitely.
We'll take this bald eagle first. Just grab that, just pull it out. And then, yep. The 2 of you want to grab it?
Montana, a bald eagle, along with golden eagle Tika, were both transferred from the Game and Fish Wildlife Center at Adobe Mountain to their new and permanent home at Heritage Park in 2013. The eagles had both sustained injuries that made them non-releasable. Most of the native wildlife here has come from similar situations, where either injuries or prolonged interaction with humans have made it impossible for them to survive on their own.
Almost all of the birds of prey, that's all of the raptors that we have here, have come from Game and Fish. Our mountain lion, I would say probably 80% of what we have has come from Game and Fish or state agency awards for animals that could no longer be released out in the wild. Even our alligator, we have 2 baby alligators. They have come from Game and Fish as pets that were confiscated. So yes, almost all the animals here.
Because of Heritage Park's reputation as a sanctuary, they also take in exotic animals from other facilities that can no longer care for them.
So the wallabies, for example, that we have here, the cute little wallabies, they came from a zoo up north that could no longer be opened. So in the closing of that zoo, they had many surplus animals that needed to have homes. So we're very proud and lucky that we're able to continue taking in those animals and having room for them for the remainder of their lives.
Every animal here has a story. Cassie, the Bengal tiger, is one of Heritage Park's main attractions, but she was almost put to death before the zoo rescued her.
Cassie and her two brothers up in a zoo in Nebraska that was closing down that were scheduled to be euthanized. Again, as luck would have it, we had an opening. Pam went home, told her husband Brian, we're going on a road trip, hook up the horse trailer, and off to Nebraska they went. Picked up Cassie and her two brothers. Our enclosure is only big enough for one tiger, plus they're solitary cats, but we sent the two brothers up to the Keepers of the Wild up in Valentine, Arizona, which are doing extremely well as well, too. Yes, and we're happy to hear you. So she's 9 years old now, bless you.
Heritage Park Zoo is a quaint, small zoo by comparison to large zoos. We pride ourselves on being a sanctuary, and that's really what we are. All the animals here are of a sanctuary, in need of sanctuary for long-term housing. Unlike traditional zoos where they usually curate a certain area of population of animals, we develop what we have based on what comes in and what needs a home. So we're a little bit of both. We're still open to the public, just like your traditional zoos, but yet all of our animals are sanctuary animals. So we're very unique in that. There are very few sanctuary zoos that operate like that.
Heritage Park also has a prestigious role as a participant in the American Zoo and Aquarium Association's Species Survival Plan for the endangered Mexican gray wolf. After a 20-year absence in the wild, the animal is being reintroduced to its former range following a successful captive breeding program, and the sanctuary serves as a holding facility for wolves not currently ready for release. Then there is Kiwanis Corner, a special area of the zoo that allows the public to get a hands-on experience with domestic livestock. Teaching children how to respect and interact with animals will help them become better wildlife stewards in the future. And with our state becoming more and more urbanized, this may be one of the few times these kids have an opportunity to brush a goat. The sanctuary also provides educational outreach programs and a hotline number the public can call to help deal with nuisance wildlife issues in the Prescott area.
Having a partner like the zoo is, it's huge. They have saved, just in this area with the officers here, they've probably, over the last couple of years, saved us thousands of man-hours in either answering people's questions over the phone or going on injured wildlife calls for us where, there's a lot of organizations and facilities that do those kinds of things in the bigger cities like Tucson and Phoenix. And here in smaller rural areas like the Prescott area, we don't really have those things.
So this is Little Charity.
We do. We have outreach programs that we do. I think this year so far we've had over 220 outreach programs. That goes as far as Tuba City and as far south as Anthem, to Sholo, to Kingman, to Holbrook, and then of course right here in the Quad City area.
Emma, can you come over here? We can go up this way, okay?
Conservation through education. That's their motto, and it's a mission they service with pride. As many of the wild places of the planet are disappearing and zoos have become the last sanctuary for much of the world's wildlife, Heritage Park Zoological Sanctuary offers a home for animals that have no other.
Sometimes, people travel large distances just to get a close look at something very small. All these people have come to eastern Arizona to visit the Sipe White Mountain Wildlife Area for a special occasion. This is the High Country Hummers Festival. And there's a lot to see here.
And see if you can see those white wings
Visitor Center features displays and hands-on exploration of history, wildlife conservation, habitat, and Native American culture. And it's where they host talks about wildlife photography and hummingbird natural history.
We have people here today from the Monarch Study. We have the U.S. Forest Service, the White Mountain Audubon Center, and then from Game and Fish, the critters from the Adobe Wildlife Center. Wildlife Views, we had magazines and we were selling some of our books. And we also had a critter booth, or a photo booth, where you could stand next to a blue heron. We took your picture and then printed it out for you to take home. And we also had a booth about different plants you can plant in your garden for hummingbirds.
But these are the real stars of the show. These hummingbirds migrate through the area during the summer monsoon season.
We have a large number of hummingbirds. We go through between 500 and 700 pounds of sugar every year and food just for the hummingbirds. And we have bird feeders all around the visitor center that people can come out all summer and take a look at.
With all these hummingbirds coming together in one place, it's a good opportunity for researchers to gather information on the health of these birds. Sheri Williamson, director of the Southeastern Arizona Bird Observatory, also returns every year.
We're here every July to band hummingbirds for just one morning here at Sipe White Mountain Wildlife Area. It's in part a public education event. We were originally invited by the Arizona Game and Fish Department to do a banding demonstration here, and we were finding some very interesting information in the birds that we caught during that demonstration. So in partnership with Arizona Game and Fish, we have continued this once a year banding here that tells us a little bit about the state of the hummingbird here in the White Mountains. When we capture a hummingbird in one of our traps, we bring it over to the table and extract it from the little carrying bag that it comes in. And the first thing we have to do is to identify it by species and age and sex. We want to know what species it is because that's going to influence what size band goes on the bird. Some of our hummingbirds are larger, some are smaller. Most of our hummingbirds take one standard band size, but we have a few, the little calliope hummingbirds, that have to take the smallest size band that we make. And so we have to determine what hummingbird we've got before we even know what band might fit it. When we get the band on the bird and we get the basic information about it, its species and age and sex, we examine the feathers, we examine the feather condition, we examine the bill for signs of recent growth so that we know what age the bird is. We look for signs of its physical condition. For the local broad-tailed hummingbird females, we give them a little obstetric exam. We look down in their little pelvic region to see if they have a developing egg. In the migrants, like the rufous and the calliope that don't nest here in the White Mountains, we look for fat to determine how well prepared they are to migrate. We look for signs of molt, which is the annual replacement of the feathers. That's a very demanding process, and whether the birds are molting and how much molt they're doing tells us a lot about the resources. If the birds have lots of resources, they're more likely to be in molt than if they don't have those resources. We also look for pollen, which is the powdery substance that the flowers deposit on the birds, that the birds carry from flower to flower, in order that the flowers can make seeds. If we're seeing lots of pollen, that means there's lots and lots of flowers out there, and frequently when we're seeing lots of bird with lots of pollen, we're not seeing very many hummingbirds at the feeders because they prefer to be at the flowers. So what the pollen is, what color it is, and where it is on the bird tells us a little bit about what kinds of flowers are available to them and what flowers they're using. And that too tells us how healthy the environment that they're living in is and how well they're using those resources. And once we get all of that information, the last thing we do, because they sometimes slip away when we wrap them up in the little net to weigh them, is we get their weight. And by comparing that to their wing length and how much fat we saw when we blew the feathers aside to look for the fat, we can get an idea of whether they're a big-boned bird or a small-boned bird. And there is quite a lot of variation. The very last thing that we do is we give them an opportunity to have a little honorarium before they leave. We offer them a drink at a feeder. We don't really want them to come back to the trap during the remainder of the banding period because there's nothing else we can really learn from them by coming back a second time in 2 or 3 hour period. So we give them a drink in hopes that they'll just go away somewhere and then come back next year. And we put them in a waiting hand. We get a human volunteer to recruit as a launch pad and send them on their way.
Woo, there you did go.
It's remarkable to be able to see so many of these beautiful creatures up close. If you want to be part of this unique wildlife watching experience, make sure to join us at the SIPE White Mountain Wildlife Area on the last Saturday in July. Visit the Arizona Game and Fish Department website for more information.
It was moving day at the Arizona Game and Fish Wildlife Center. At least it was for about 60 Sonoran desert tortoises that were moving to new adoptive homes.
Around 8:30, there was a huge pile of people outside the gate, and it made me really happy because those are the dedicated people that really want their tortoise.
The prospective tortoise adopters, who were lined up before the facility opened, had applied online for adoption privileges ahead of time. They were also required to bring photos to show that their yard has proper tortoise habitat. Once the paperwork was cleared, they were allowed to come in and find the tortoise they felt was just right for their family.
You peed in there, huh?
We like him because he seems really active and very friendly. When I picked him up, he went right up onto my neck and was kind of pushing up against me, and we really like that.
Yep, snuggle.
He seems to have good personality and be pretty active.
When it comes to being active, with a tortoise that can be a relative term, but they certainly have no shortage of personality.
I think tortoises just fascinate people. They're a little bit different than a dog or a cat, but they can still make a nice pet. They're low maintenance, and so when we put out the information that we were looking for homes, we actually had a really good turnout of people that were interested in taking care of them. And I think too, they're an iconic desert species that people here in Arizona really love.
Oh my goodness, I love turtles. When we saw this on TV about adopting, I think I was probably your first application.
The tortoises up for adoption today range in age from 6-month-old hatchlings to 3-year-old youngsters to 50-year-old adults. Since tortoises can easily live for 100 years, anybody who adopts one needs to be ready for a very long commitment.
We will have to make sure that he's inherited.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
So that he'll have a good home when we go. Huh.
What, I'm going to live 100 years with him.
The Wildlife Center holds adoption events like this because there are too many tortoises and not enough homes for them. The problem comes from captive tortoises being allowed to breed, and they can produce a lot of offspring in a short amount of time. Game and Fish frequently gets calls to come to someone's home and pick up 40 to 50 unwanted tortoises.
Okay, you ready? Yeah. Good Lord, you're going to need someone to carry it out.
Before being put up for adoption, the tortoises are quarantined until they are given a health exam by one of the Wildlife Center's cooperating veterinarians. Once they are deemed healthy, they can be made available to the public.
We can't let them back out into the desert because once the tortoise is captive, you have to keep them in captivity. If you put them out into the wild, two things. One is you can jeopardize the wild population by introducing diseases like upper respiratory diseases. And also for that tortoise, you think you're doing them a favor by releasing them into the wild, but that tortoise doesn't know where to find food, water, shelter, and often it can mean that the animal ends up dying because that's not habitat they're familiar with.
They're just so cool.
Before you think about adopting a tortoise, find out as much as you can about their care and habitat requirements. They will need an enclosed area in your yard free of potential hazards, such as a dog or a pool, and the area must include a burrow for the tortoise to escape Arizona's extreme temperatures.
This is Wyatt. He's got a great house. Our whole backyard is tortoise haven. He's gonna have the greatest place.
If you are willing to do the research and provide the right environment, tortoises can make a great addition to your family.
They're really low maintenance, they're really easy to take care of, and they're great for kids because they come right up to you, they eat out of your hand. I just think they're awesome.
He loves you.
Well, that's our show for today. For more information, visit our website at AZGFD.GOV. For all the fine folks at Arizona Game and Fish, I'm Jim Paxon. We'll see you next time.